It was a long-standing dream to hike the Inca Trail, and finally our chance arrived as we flew from Lima to Cusco, high in the mountains at about 11,000 feet. Driving from the airport to downtown Cusco, we passed under the gaze of modern statues of a couple of Incas, including Inca Pachacuti, who was the ruler in the mid-1400s responsible for the great expansion of the Inca Empire and the construction of Machu Picchu. In the colonial section of Cusco, several of the buildings were built on a foundation of amazing Inca masonry. Given the altitude and our lack of acclimatization, it was a bit of an effort to make a big walk around Cusco. As tourism is very important in Cusco, there are many tourist shops. The less fortunate vendors sold basic goods such as toilet paper on the street. There are some very interesting murals around Cusco, including the Sacsayhuaman battle mural that illustrates the ferocity of the battle between the Inca and the Spanish and their Indian allies. Cusco is a city of churches, but the one that we wanted to see was the Church of Santo Domingo, not the church itself, rather its foundations, which are based on the Coricancha, or Temple of the Sun. This temple was once the most important temple of the Inca, and when the Spanish conquered the Inca Empire, they used the temple as a foundation for the Church of Santo Domingo. The extremely fine Inca stonework does not fail to impress due to its smooth surface and wonderful color of the matched stones. The heart of Cusco is the Plaza de Armas, and it is one of the most beautiful plazas that we have seen. The plaza is surrounded mainly by colonial-era churches and buildings. At night, the buildings are illuminated, and the plaza is even more impressive. Also high up on the hill over the plaza is the bright white figure of Cristo Blanco, which is illuminated at night. The Sacred Valley is a prime agricultural valley whose produce helps feed Cusco today as it did in Inca times. We left Cusco on our way into the Sacred Valley. Along the way we visited a small village with its Indian market where time has stood still since biblical times, and the village women were sorting the wheat from the chaff by hand. Inca Písac was built high on a hillside around 1440 AD, possibly to defend the southern entrance to the Sacred Valley. There was an Indian playing a flute and selling his CDs. There were several Indians in traditional dress who sold photographic opportunities. The dominant feature of Inca Písac is the outstanding terraces. The terraces once helped feed the Incans, and they are still used today, but they were fallow when we visited. Leaving Písac, we continued up the valley towards Ollantaytambo and stopped at Calca, a small town where we watched workers building an adobe wall. It was fascinating to see a newly expanded adobe oven with its fresh adobe still drying, while in the nearby corn storeroom, guinea pigs were being raised for food. Ollantaytambo is an Incan fortress, and in 1536 it was the site of the Incas' greatest military victory over the invading Spaniards. Today it is one of the only towns in Peru that retains its original Inca walls and street grid. The masonry on Temple Hill included the finest examples of Inca stonework that we saw. The heavy stone blocks were fitted together to the highest possible standard of masonry without the use of mortar. The wall of the 6 monoliths near the top of Temple Hill is felt to be part of an unfinished Inca sun temple. While we were on Temple Hill, a group of Indian children in colorful dresses and straw hats arrived for a cultural visit. They certainly have a proud cultural heritage. The 4-day Inca Trail to Machu Picchu is challenging, and we hope that we were prepared for it. The trail is a 25-mile hike with 3 high passes to be crossed, one of which reaches an elevation of 13,776 feet. The trail is often unrelenting up or down, with some very steep short sections. We rated day 1 of the Inca Trail as easy to moderate. On day 1 there was an ascent of about 1,300 feet. The distance covered was 6.2 miles, and we spent 6¼ hours on the trail. We departed Ollantaytambo for the trailhead at kilometer 82. As we passed through the checkpoint, the porters were having their loads weighed to verify they did not exceed the government limit of 40 kilograms. The day 1 section of the trail is frequently used by people living in the area, so we encountered locals on the trail. We rated day 2 of the Inca Trail as difficult. On day 2 there was an ascent of 4,000 feet, a descent of 2,000 feet. The distance covered was 7½ miles, and we spent 9¼ hours on the trail. The first part of day 2 was the long slog ascending Warmiwanuska, or Dead Woman's Pass, which at about 14,000 feet is the highest point on the trail. From everything that we had read, the 4,000-foot climb up this pass was to be the most challenging part of the trek, so we were a bit concerned about this day. However, in the event, we were right to be concerned, but not because of the ascent, rather because of the interminable descent. As per every night on the trail, when we arrived in the campsite, everything had been set up by our porters, and supper was soon ready to eat in the dining tent. We rated day 3 of the Inca Trail as difficult. On day 3 there was an ascent of about 700 feet, a descent of about 3,600 feet. The distance covered was 6.8 miles, and we spent 11½ hours on the trail. Day 3 was our first full day on part of the Inca Trail that was actually built by the Incas. It was immediately apparent that the Incas built a trail to a much higher standard than their modern compatriots. They used more stonework and carved out tunnels where required, which I had never encountered before on the trails that I've hiked. The highlight of day 3 was visiting the ruins of Sayamarca at 11,800 feet. At lunch, our guides introduced our trekking group of 16 to our support staff of 20. The level of support staff is set by government regulation. Hence, over half of the 500 people allowed to start daily on the Inca Trail are support staff. About 2 hours after lunch, we reached the top of the third pass in the campsite near the ruins of Fayu Patamarca. Our guide had told us that his favorite outhouse was at the top of the hill at this campsite, as there was a magnificent view out of the door. As I needed to have a toilet break, I climbed up the hill to the outhouse. The outhouse was a smelly, squat toilet with no toilet paper, but it did have a nice view. Descending to the campsite, we were jolted back into the modern world as we could see the town of Agua Caliente way down below us in the Urubamba Valley, and a power line crossing the mountainside below us. As this was our last day with the porters, we tipped them for their excellent support, and they then proceeded to have a noisy party late into the night. The fourth day was the culmination of all the effort, as we were to finally reach Machu Picchu. We got up at 4:30, had breakfast, and then switched on our headlights and started off at 5:30 to the control point, where we queued up for its 6 o'clock opening. The trail was precarious at times as it hugged the mountainside. As we neared the Sun Gate, we encountered a very steep set of stairs, which we surmounted using our hands like climbing a ladder. We arrived at the Sun Gate at 6:49 a.m. just in time to see the first rays of the sun strike the ruins of Machu Picchu. It only took 4 minutes for Machu Picchu to be fully illuminated by the sun. From the Sun Gate, we could see the final stretch of the Inca Trail heading off down to Machu Picchu in the distance. With the sun risen over Machu Picchu, it was impressive to see the sight spread out in front of us, from the peak of Huayna Picchu on the right to the agricultural terraces on the left. From the Sun Gate, there's an excellent view down into the Urubamba River Valley and the town of Agua Caliente, up the serpentine Hiram Bingham Highway that snakes up from the valley to the site of Machu Picchu high above. As the sun rose higher in the sky, mountain shadows were cast across the Urubamba Valley towards Machu Picchu. Although the local Quechua farmers in the area knew of Machu Picchu for centuries, Machu Picchu was only brought to the world's attention when an 11-year-old boy led Hiram Bingham to the site in 1911. Descending down the final section of the Inca Trail from the Sun Gate, we briefly stopped at the terraces located on the southeast side of Machu Picchu, where the iconic photographs of Machu Picchu are taken. In the distance, we could see the shining white peaks, including Mount Salcante. The Temple of the Sun is unique amongst the buildings due to its cylindrical shape. A picture of the temple in 1911 shows that apart from the removal of vegetation, little was needed to be done in terms of restoration. The ritual fountains are beautifully carved into solid rock. Roofs were tied to the walls using cylindrical roof posts. Intihuatana stones were supremely sacred objects of the Inca people. The name means hitching post to the sun, and these stones were arranged so as to point directly at the sun on winter solstice. The Intihuatana stones were systematically searched for and destroyed by the Spaniards. Since the Spaniards never found Machu Picchu, its Intihuatana stone stands in its original position. Llamas roam around the site, adding some local flavor and increasing the photo opportunities. Leaving Machu Picchu, we caught a bus for the interesting descent down the hairpin turns of the Hiram Bingham Highway into Agua Caliente. In Agua Caliente, we lunched on the busy main street and were entertained by an excellent musical group. The main street has the busy Peru Rail tracks running right along it. We boarded the train back to Ollantaytambo to catch the bus back to Cusco. Once on board the train, we first took stock of the damage suffered by our feet on the Inca Trail and then settled back to see the fascinating scenery passing by us as we traveled alongside the Rio Urubamba, including Inca ruins and towering snow-capped peaks. Our Inca Trail adventure was over, and while we did not set any speed record, we did complete the trail and so achieved our dream. Arriving back in Cusco, we bid farewell to our guides and prepared for our Amazon jungle visit. If you enjoyed this film, please subscribe and like. There are many more similar films available on my channel.